Manchester United hold talks with Fiorentina over their midfielder Sofyan Amrabat as efforts to sign Rasmus Hojlund from Atalanta continue as interest in the striker grows. Hi, good evening. Welcome along to the Transfer Show. The countdown is on for Erik ten Hag to get his priority signing over the line with just over 2 weeks until the start of the new season. On the show tonight, Dharmesh Sheth is with me for the very latest news, plus the former Newcastle defender Warren Barton and former Aston Villa midfielder Lee Hendry join the debate as well. And there's lots more on the way before 8.
It's crazy. It's honestly crazy. I'm already seeing football in a complete different way.
We need one more. We are working on that.
This is what we want, to create competition in the team with the level of each individual.
Personally, and I'll get shot down by the Spurs fans, for Harry Kane, I want to see him win team trophies.
Right, we broke the news in the last few minutes about Jordan Henderson. Dharmesh Sheth is here. So what's Henderson had to say for those who haven't heard?
Yeah, it's starting to become a reality now. Jordan Henderson's time at Liverpool is up. He's posted a farewell message on his Instagram account after 12 years at Liverpool. That career at Liverpool has now come to an end. He says it's hard to put these last 12 years into words, even harder to say goodbye. He said he will always be a Red until the day he dies. He says, thank you for everything. You'll never walk alone. And he signs it, Jordan. 12 years at Liverpool, as I say, 7 major trophies. He made 492 appearances for Liverpool. And now the deal to take him, some say controversially, to Saudi Arabia and Al Ettifaq is expected to be formally announced in the coming days. It will be very, very soon now. Of course, that team managed by Steven Gerrard. We think that deal is worth around 12 or 13 million pounds. But Jordan Henderson's career at Liverpool is now over and he's on his way to Saudi and Al Ettifaq.
Do you think if he'd stayed at Liverpool, he'd have had much game time?
I think that was probably one of the things he discussed with Jurgen Klopp. And once he found out how much game time he was going to get, and I'm sure he'd have spoken to Gareth Southgate as well about what was going to happen with England too. But if he's not getting reassurances about game time for Liverpool, I think that in itself might have put any kind of England chances with Gareth Southgate potentially into doubt as well. So I know this has been talked about all week as one of the most talked about transfers we've had in many, many years, you'd have to say. Because of the controversial nature of it. But, you know, when you break it down, you talk about the contract that he's going to get and the money he's going to get paid. I know people say, look, he's already on life-changing money because he's a Premier League footballer. Yes, you can say that. This you could describe as generational money for him to look after his family, his children, his children's children and generations to come. So Jordan Henderson on his way to Saudi.
All right, let's stay with Liverpool. Romeo Lavia had a bid rejected. What do they do? Do they go again? Do they walk away?
We expect Liverpool to go back with an improved offer to Southampton for their midfielder, Romeo Lavia. The first bid that's gone in is around £40 million. That's what the bid was worth in total. So we think the guaranteed payment was around £35 million plus those performance-related add-ons. Southampton, though, are understood to want around £50 million for Romeo Lavia. Now, some people would say, look, he's got 4 years left on his contract, so Southampton can demand what they want. But others have questioned, would the relegation have impacted the valuation for Romeo Lavia? Because if he's in the Premier League still, well, Southampton will probably keep hold of him, number one, but they could probably demand a lot more money. But I don't think that's the case. I think they've actually said, no, Romeo Lavia is our player. We know what we value him at, and it looks like it's around £50 million. So until someone meets that price, he'll remain a Southampton player. Now, he actually played in their pre-season friendly for 45 minutes against Bournemouth yesterday. Liverpool aren't the only ones who are interested, though, because in the background, Chelsea remain very, very keen on signing Romeo Lavia. No official bid yet, but what I am told is that personal terms, if he was to go to Liverpool or Chelsea, aren't expected to be a problem. So it's Liverpool who have started to make the moves now with regard to official bids. If there is an agreement between Liverpool and Southampton at some point, then it will be up to Chelsea to try and match whatever Liverpool have done, and then maybe give Romeo Lavia a decision to make. But at the moment, it's Liverpool who are making all the running.
OK, let's talk Manchester United now. Searching for a midfielder. Any news?
It's interesting because we know that they are wanting to strengthen in that area. The issue that Manchester United have got at the moment, we know that there's lots of budgetary constraints. They're trying to comply with FFP rules with every single signing that they're trying to make so far in this transfer window. But if they are to recruit again in central midfield, it would probably require a departure in that position. And we've been talking about Fred potentially leaving. We know Fulham have been interested, but not at the prices that were being quoted. He's only got a year left on his contract. He's 30 years old. Are Manchester United going to offer him something long-term? Probably not. Fred might be able to get something more long-term elsewhere. Donny van de Beek has even thrown doubt on his own future following that goal he scored against Lyon about whether he was going to stay at United or not. And Scott McTominay as well, West Ham, we know, have got an interest, though we believe that United see him as a top player, as someone who's very integral to that squad, and that Erik ten Hag is actually planning for him for next season. But what we do also know is that Manchester United have held early initial preliminary talks with Fiorentina over their midfielder, Sofyan Amrabat. Now, they're not going to accelerate that deal until they've recouped some money from potential departures in that area. But no question about it, there is an interest there. Morocco international impressed so much, didn't he, during the World Cup in Qatar. He's also played under Erik ten Hag, and we know that the signings that Erik ten Hag has been making in the main are players that he does know or that he has played, that have played for him. Now, this one goes back a few years. This was when Erik ten Hag was manager of Utrecht, and Sofyan Amrabat was a midfielder for him. So definitely one to watch, but it probably would require departures in that area. OK, that's midfield. Striker, what's going on? So we know Andre Onana has come in. We know that Mason Mount has come in. The focus is well and truly on bringing in the number 9. And that was looking like the primary focus for Manchester United at the start of this window. Even before that, we were looking back in November when Cristiano Ronaldo left. It was going to be the area that they were going to focus on. They decided to take a short-term route in January when they brought in Wout Weghorst. He's now back with Burnley because they thought they'll have a lot more options come the summer. We know all the issues with Harry Kane and how very unlikely or almost impossible that deal would be to do, simply because of the cost in transfer fee, the cost in wages, and Tottenham not wanting to sell to another Premier League club. So United's primary focus, it looks like, is Rasmus Hojlund of Atalanta. Now, I'm told that United will not be swayed or influenced in any way on how they approach this particular deal if there are other clubs interested. We're hearing that PSG want to sign Hojlund as well. That's not going to impact Manchester United at all. They are very comfortable, very relaxed and very disciplined on how they are approaching this deal for Hojlund, because they are getting encouragement that Hojlund would want to come to Old Trafford. They will not overpay, though. Discussions so far have been positive, but those discussions have also highlighted a gap in valuations. Now, Atalanta, we believe, would want 70 million euros plus for Rasmus Hojlund. We don't think Manchester United want to go that high, so they're working for a compromise, rather like they did with Andre Onana at Inter Milan, rather like they did with Mason Mount for Chelsea. They didn't pay what the public figure was for these two players. They managed to bring it down, managed to get a lower guaranteed payment, plus those performance-related add-ons. And they are prepared to walk away if they do not get this deal struck with Atalanta. But one thing that Erik ten Hag is very keen on is definitely having someone in place, especially before the season starts. He doesn't want to be in a position like he was last summer when Casemiro and Antony, two of his biggest signings of the last summer's transfer window, came in after the season had already started. But he has been asked the question over and over again during news conferences, and he says we are making progress in our pursuit of a striker. He won't name names, but he said, once we have news, we'll tell you. All right. OK, let's bring in our first guest then. We can join Warren Barton, or rather, Warren Barton can join us. Warren, very good evening. Good to see you. Obviously, Premier League clubs are all talking about we've got to catch Manchester City. So let's start with United.
We know they've got Mason Mount. They've got a new goalkeeper in Andre Anana. Sofyan Amrabat could come through the door. Would that be enough to get close to challenging?
No, I don't think so. And as you was talking just briefly beforehand, it's that striker that they're needing to go after. Harry Kane is obviously the #1 target for most clubs in Europe, all over the world. So I do believe they need to strengthen them. But like you rightly said, they need to, whether it's Harry Maguire, Fred, have to leave to generate some income to bring another player. But they are definitely out to look. I was watching the game actually yesterday with Wrexham and young Manchester United players, although they performed okay, but it didn't seem there was someone there ready to step up and take that mental like you've seen before in the past. So I do believe they're out looking, as most clubs are still. A lot of these clubs are out on pre-season tours all over the world. So it'd be, I would think, in the next 10 days when people get back and start looking very, very seriously to sign these players and get them going. But Manchester United still need to build, as well as everybody does, because City, they're strong, they're obviously ambitious, and they've got quality players. But there's a benchmark, and everybody's trying to reach that.
All right, let's talk Chelsea then. We all know that they had to trim that squad. They've done a bit of that. What do you make of their window so far?
Yeah, I think it's been quite interesting. And again, very similar to Manchester United because of what they've done in the last transfer windows. They're probably looking to get rid of players. Conor Gallagher is another excellent young player. You was talking earlier about Jordan Henderson playing time and in the England, and Conor's very much at the beginning of his England career. He'll want to be playing regular and get that type of form that he showed when he was at Crystal Palace, when he was on loan at Chelsea. So there's another player looking. Obviously, Mount's obviously gone. Christian Pulisic has left as well. So there seems to be a little bit of room going forward. Loftus-Cheek, another player to leave. But, there's still, again, the areas where they need to have that understanding of experience and also young players. Pochettino's come in and we know how good he is with the younger players. But I still believe they need that midfield, I wouldn't say general, but that physical player in that midfield area to make them a stronger team. But they are going to bounce back. They had obviously a disappointing season, to say the least. But he comes in with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, the manager. Young players, looking vibrant. They play my Newcastle as well in a few hours. So that's going to be interesting to see how they perform there. They're going to be a lot better and a lot stronger. But again, they need to add in, I think, vital positions, whether it's a centre-back, centre midfield, or down the middle as well. So, that'd be interesting to see what comes along.
Well, we know they want Moises Caicedo from Brighton, but Brighton are fighting them over the price. They want similar to what Arsenal paid for Declan Rice. Is he worth Declan Rice money?
But you could say, is Declan Rice worth that money? But that's the going rate now. We look at what's happened in Saudi Arabia, the league there. And I would be concerned if I'm in the Premier League because we've seen there's quality players. But Caicedo at Brighton is a real X factor in any league and any team as well. And I think he's a quality player, very, very determined in his position. He wants to play at a high level, wants to play in Champions League. Brighton, we know, a well-organised team. They're well.
Oh, that's a shame. Warren was in full flow and we've lost him. And I was just about to talk to him about Newcastle as well. He'll be gutted about that. We'll try and get Warren Barton back next so we can talk about Newcastle and the sort of business they're doing. So let's talk Chelsea. We touched on it there. Caicedo. Given what happened in January, how difficult is it going to be to get this one over the line?
Very, very, very difficult. I've been told it's going at a glacial pace. It's very, very slow. Chelsea now are in that position where they're deciding on their next step with regard to that pursuit of Moises Caicedo, the Brighton midfielder. We're told that rather like United with Hojlund, they're comfortable with their approach that they're making so far, and they're comfortable with the bid that they made. They bid £70 million for Moises Caicedo. Brighton rejected that out of hand. And I know you were just speaking to Warren there about how Brighton are valuing Moises Caicedo. And it's true, they want closer to £100 million because they've seen Declan Rice almost change the dynamic of this transfer window. Because if he's worth £100 million plus, then Brighton are thinking, well, we think Moises Caicedo is worth the same amount as Declan Rice as well. Look, Chelsea will be patient with this one, given the magnitude of the deal and given they really do want to sign Moises Caicedo. However, they do have other options and they are prepared to walk away from any kind of deal, because we're not talking about Chelsea bidding 80 or 85 million pounds and there's a small gap to fill. Can they fill it with performance-related add-ons potentially to get to closer to 100 million pounds? This is 70 million and 100 million. This is a big gap to fill if Brighton are going to do business here. 30 million pounds to fill. So while that is happening in the background, Chelsea are trying to get other players into the squad, because we know at the start of Mauricio Pochettino's reign, the priority was, let's streamline this squad, and they've done so well with it. And now the questions are beginning to get asked to Mauricio Pochettino. Who are you bringing into the team? Who are you bringing into that squad ahead of the new season? Well, the Ajax attacking midfielder Mohamed Kudus, he is a player that Chelsea are interested in. No official bid yet, but initial talks have taken place. Interestingly, he's entered the final 2 years of his contract at Ajax. And it's that kind of dangerous position if you're a club, because if the player is not going to sign an extension to that contract, then this will probably be the optimum time to get the best transfer fee for a player like that, because 1 year down the line, they know they're 6 months away from being able to sign a pre-contract agreement with Chelsea for no money at all. But look, it's dominating a lot of Mauricio Pochettino's news conferences just now out there in the States, and he was asked about recruitment and in particular in the midfield area. This is what Pochettino had to say.
Well, depend of the situation of different player. I think at least we need one more, and we are working on that. But I see it depend of what is happening in the next few weeks. We will decide and we will take a decision. Connor is in our plan. I was talking with him the first day that he arrived. That is in our plan. And then in football, things can happen. We cannot manage. But, at the moment, I think I am happy with him, with his performance. Still 2-year contract. And nothing to say.
Nothing to say. But we will say something.
Yes.
He's happy with his performances. He's got 2 years left on his contract. And he says, I've spoken to Conor Gallagher and I've told him he is part of my plans. But he added, in football, anything can happen. And that anything is coming in the form of West Ham United, because they want to sign Conor Gallagher. They've gone in with a bid in the region of around £40 million. Chelsea have rejected that bid, and now West Ham, behind the scenes, are now discussing whether to go back in with an improved offer for Chelsea's Conor Gallagher, or say, thanks but no thanks, we're going to focus on other targets. But one to keep an eye on, definitely.
Okay. Let's take a break now. Coming up after the break, Kyle Walker played and captained Manchester City against the team that are trying to buy him, Bayern Munich. We'll discuss that next and ask if Pep was sending a message. And we sit down with Arsenal's new £105 million midfielder Declan Rice, who's already targeting Premier League and Champions League glory with his new club. See you in a moment. Welcome back to the Transfer Show. Now, we'll hear from Declan Rice shortly. You'll be glad to hear we've got Warren Barton back. Before we hear from both, quick update on Manchester City. Now, Dharmesh, was Pep Guardiola sending a message to Bayern Munich earlier on this morning?
If you go back 24 hours, Pep Guardiola's news conference talking about Kyle Walker, confirming that Manchester City had been in talks with Bayern Munich of a potential sale of Kyle Walker for around £13 million. In that news conference, Pep Guardiola said, Kyle Walker is irreplaceable and I will fight to keep him. Today, in Tokyo, Bayern Munich play Manchester City. Manchester City win by 2-1. Kyle Walker is the captain of Manchester City. Now, we do know that Walker is open to talking to Bayern Munich. And if you break down what potentially is on offer from both clubs, you can see why. He's into the final year of his contract at Manchester City. We think Bayern Munich would be prepared to offer Kyle Walker a 2-year contract plus the option of a further 12 months. So that's another 3 years guaranteed, almost, when he'd be playing Champions League football and winning trophies in the Bundesliga, you would think. Whereas Manchester City would probably prefer a 1-year contract, given his age is 33 years old, plus the option of a further year. Now, by making him captain, Pep Guardiola is living up to the fighting to keep Kyle Walker. I just wonder how much of an impact and how much damage it did to Kyle Walker and his thinking about whether to stay at City or not in that game in the Champions League final against Inter Milan. Biggest game, you could argue, in their history, and Kyle Walker was left out of that starting 11. He did come off the bench, we know that, but we know that would have hurt him. So was that the initial message that he was getting sent from Pep Guardiola and Manchester City about his future, compared to the message that maybe Pep Guardiola is sending to Bayern Munich?
Absolutely. All right, let's bring Warren Barton back. For those of you who were with us in the last part, we lost Warren. He's played his Lecky bill. He is back. Hi, Warren. We're talking about Kyle Walker. I mean, he might be 33, but he still runs like the road runner. How hard should City fight to keep him?
I think, like Pep said, he's irreplaceable, and regardless of age. And I remember Arsene Wenger doing this with Arsenal, with Thierry Henry and Patrick Vieira. Once they got to that 31, 32 age, it's that 1-year contract. Certain players are so vital, regardless of age. I mean, Kyle Walker's got better as he's actually got older and stronger and quicker, and I think he's a vital part. And it's a great point that you made. Maybe Pep, it's a little bit too late, where he left them out the Champions League final, which I thought was a big mistake, although they obviously went on and won it. I think Kyle Walker was playing the best football he's ever had. But then to come back and make him captain in this game against Bayern Munich was a little bit maybe patronising for Kyle Walker. But for me, if I'm Man City, it's like, I'm keeping you at all costs. If you want 2 years, fine. If you want 3 years, we'll figure that out. Because he's, as I said, he's getting better, he's fit. And it's not only what he does on the field, it's what he does off the field with some of the players, and what I've heard about how he is in the changing room and in the changing ground as well, with new players coming in, how he gets them going. I mean, Kyle Walker will go down, probably with Gary Neville, probably the best fullbacks that have ever played in the Premier League. So from that point of view, you keep him and you have him around because he's vital in so many areas, and Man City can afford to do that as well.
Warren, I could have sworn you said Gary Neville then, but you can't have done. City won the treble, but as you say, Kyle Walker's looking at the exit door, as are a number of other players. The captain's already gone. Should City fans be a bit worried?
Just winning the treble? I don't think so, but I do understand the question where you're starting to lose some of your key players. Gundogan was superb as well. If Walker goes, there's another one. But I think what Pep's been able to do in the past is bring through these younger players that are ready to take fold going forwards. So I wouldn't be too concerned if I'm a Man City fan at the moment, because we just spoke about the big neighbours next door in Manchester United. They've still got a long way to go to try and catch you. So I think they're in good shape, my friend. I think they're OK.
Well, that is good to hear. I promised everyone that you could wax lyrical about your beloved Newcastle. I know you've been with them in Philadelphia. Are you worried that it might be a bit difficult to improve on what they did last season?
Yeah, if I'm being honest, and we were saying that, me and Shea Given and Shola Ameobi, when we was in Philadelphia for the Aston Villa game. And the expectation, and we had it ourselves, playing Champions League, then you're playing the Premier League, which is so demanding. They want to do well domestically in the Cup. So speaking to Eddie after the game, it's the balance of how you keep everybody involved and engaged. They still need to add one or two. They are still out there in the market looking around at players, and they want to add, and there's one or two that will be going out the door as well. So I wouldn't say I'm concerned, but the expectations of what they did last season, the owners knowing how ambitious they are, they want to be number one, they want to compete at the highest level. But Champions League and Premier League can take a lot out of your roster and your squad of players. So they still need to add. To get the expectations of what they did last season will be very, very difficult because, as I said, Chelsea will be better. Liverpool are going to be better. Aston Villa look a very, very good team. And everybody's spending big money. So it's there for what you want. And what we've always wanted as a fan is to compete and challenge. And that's what we're doing now. So we'll take one step at a time. But it's going to be an important season for Eddie and Newcastle going forward.
Yeah, it really will. And before you go, I must ask you about Shaka Hislop. I know he's a good mate of yours. We all saw those terrible scenes when he collapsed live on air whilst working for American television. Have you been in touch?
Yeah, I did. I reached out to him, and typical Shaka, it was like, well, that was a little bit awkward, wasn't it, as he fell down. But I was at the Philly game, and then I watched it, I put my phone on, and then obviously with social media, it was out there. I texted him straight away and got a message the following day. He said, I'm good, I'm fine. They're doing a lot of tests. And he's back home with Dasha and the kids, his wife, and he's at home now, getting comfortable. He's felt in good spirits, good mood, but like he said, it was a big shock and a big wake-up call. So he said, give me a bit of time. And Shaka's a great personality. He's done so much for the game, on and off the game, and a wonderful person. But he's good. He's good at the moment. He feels comfortable. He's strong, and he's got good support around him with his wife and kids as well. And we wish him all the best. But he was in good spirit. Typical Shaka. There was always a big laugh at the end of it. So it was great that he's back and doing well because we all love him very, very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Warren, that's a great way to finish this. Listen, thank you ever so much for coming on and then coming on again. Great to speak to you.
Pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Cheers. Warren Broughton. Brilliant. Now, Declan Rice's £105 million move from West Ham to Arsenal, the biggest deal of the summer so far. And Arsenal's new midfielder has been speaking to our senior reporter Melissa Reddy about the move and his expectations for the season.
It's crazy. It's honestly crazy. I'm already seeing football in a complete different way. You think you know football like growing up and when you play, but when you meet managers like Mikel, you realise you don't really know anything about football. There's different styles and different ways of playing that I've never experienced before. It's going to take some time to adapt, but I'm really eager to learn, to improve, to ask questions, to do one-to-one training to improve and try and get it as quickly as possible. And hopefully once all that starts to click, Arsenal will be amazing. And of course, I want to go up a few levels, like I just said as well, which I know I can. So, yeah, it's really important that I adapt.
It's still very early days in your Arsenal career, but any special on-pitch chemistry that you felt yet with a particular player?
Yeah, you know what? I think from the first day when I was there, Leandro Trossard, he's like, yeah, you wouldn't put us two together, I would say, but he's like a really, really top guy.
Yeah.
I sat next to him on the plane. I've been with him here quite a lot. He's just an all-round top person. I've really got on with him. And playing against him in the past as well, he was always a pain. So it's nice to have him on my side now as well. Yeah. Such a top player. But I feel like with everyone here, like all of the Brazilian guys, the Portuguese guys, the French guys, like everyone is so top. And from the outside, you see Arsenal as like a big family together. And that's exactly what it is, inside the dressing room, which is really good. The mindset and mentality is just about winning, from the physios to the chefs, to the analysts, everyone behind the scenes. It's all on that focus of being the best you can be, pushing yourself every day to become a better person, a better player. And I think Mikel, that's exactly how he is. As well as a football coach, psychologically he's amazing. And Arsenal under Mikel have won Community Shields, FA Cups, but I think now, at this club, it's a massive club. It's constant pressure of delivering titles, and it's been such a long time now since Arsenal won a Premier League. Last year was so close. I feel like we're better off now this year of learning from that experience. So I think that's definitely a target. And of course, you're in the Champions League. You go in the Champions League to win. You don't go into just to take part, just hoping it's a successful season, but time will tell.
So, Dharmesh, she's one of 3 deals that Arsenal did early. Are they done in the window now, or will they bring more people in?
I mean, it's quite an outlay, isn't it? £200 million they've spent on Declan Rice, Kai Havertz and Jurrien Timber. The focus is going to be on outgoings now. They're looking at potential exit routes for a number of their players, including Nicolas Pepe, who was the record signing, wasn't he? Until Declan Rice came along, £72 million. He's entered the final year of his contract, so they want to find a new home for Nicolas Pepe, ideally to get some money back on that transfer fee as well. Probably their most saleable asset is going to be Folarin Balogun. Had a really good season on loan at Reims last season, 21 goals in Ligue 1. But Arsenal are asking for around £50 million. We know that Inter Milan are interested. We know that Monaco are interested as well. If it was a Premier League club, you'd probably back them to be able to get to that £50 million mark. It's going to be slightly more difficult for a European club to do that. But Inter Milan will particularly try and push for this one because they've pulled out of a deal for Romelu Lukaku. So while that focus is on the potential outgoings, you can't rule out potential incoming still in this transfer window, but it would require money to come back into the club and spaces to appear in the squad. I'm told don't rule out a central midfielder, but that's only because there was so much interest in Thomas Partey throughout this transfer window. He's 30 years old now, he's got 2 years left on his contract. Are Arsenal going to extend that, or are they thinking, should we cash in now? Mikel Arteta publicly is saying all the right things. He can play, he's going to get a lot of game time, but in the game against Manchester United, Thomas Partey didn't start. It was Kai Havertz, it was Martin Odegaard, and it was Declan Rice in that midfield three. So maybe just one to watch, and if they do get big money for any of their midfielders, potentially one could come in. And the right-sided attacking area as well. Behind Bukayo Saka, there might be quite a big drop-off on who can come in. So I think they've tried to strengthen in that area in the last 2 or 3 transfer windows, haven't managed to do it. If they can get enough money in after their £200 million splurge, then let's see if they can recruit in that area as well.
Damesh, you mentioned Lukaku. I need to talk to you about Lukaku. Don't let me forget, later on in the show, we've got to talk Lukaku. But we're going for a break now, and former Manchester United striker has had a message for Harry Kane. What's that? Stay tuned. Plus, Aston Villa have spent big this summer after impressing at the end of last season under Unai Emery. What can they achieve this time around? Well, we asked their former midfielder Lee Hendry. He's coming up next. This is the transfer show. Dharmesh Chef done a lot of talking tonight. He's working hard. So to give him a bit of a break, we're joined by the former Aston Villa midfielder Lee Hendry, who's there waiting to speak to us. Lee, great to see you. We'll talk Aston Villa, of course, but I want to start with Manchester United. Warren Barton's just been on. He said they got to sign a striker. We're about 2 weeks away from the season. They haven't. Do they need to get on with it?
Yeah, I think they do. I think this has been an area where I think if you could really identify somewhere where you think that Manchester United could go and progress and push on and start competing for the title, you do feel that if there was an area, it'd be a centre forward for sure. I mean, the obvious choice, which has been on lots of people's lips, is that Harry Kane. Obviously, he would be the ideal choice to go into the football club where he's got the numbers. He's prolific. He's got everything. But yeah, I do feel that looking at, we're going into, we're not far away from the season starting, and that hasn't been brought to the forefront. I mean, the only thing I can think of is that maybe he's going to go through with Rashford playing through the middle, maybe a Martial playing through the middle, but they have got lots of attacking players in wide areas. Sancho didn't perform to what he should have done. So, you do feel that an obvious choice would be bringing a Harry Kane in, who certainly would bring goals and certainly push Manchester United in contention.
Hi, Lee. It's Dharmesh here. You mentioned Harry Kane there. Look, Tottenham don't want to sell to a Premier League rival at all. And Kane doesn't look like he's going to sign a new contract during this transfer window. Bayern Munich, we know, are really pushing to sign him. If you were advising Harry Kane, what would you be telling him?
Do you know what? I've had so many conversations with different people about the whole situation with Harry Kane and why on earth would he want to go to Bayern Munich? For obvious choice, they're a massive football club. I think the thing is with Harry Kane, he's just been identified as one of the world's best strikers, if you like. And as I said, his numbers are fantastic. He's done it in the Premier League every single year, no matter what. His assists, his goals. I would be saying to stay in the Premier League for sure. I can totally understand, because I've listened to so many people, yourself, Dharmesh, on why and obviously what the reason behind. But I would be saying to him, you're at an age now where you could go to a football club. I'm not saying Manchester United are going to go and win the league by any stretch. I think Manchester City are just so strong. But what it does, it brings an identification to the football club. It brings a demeanour that they are really pushing to start to compete with the likes of Manchester City, the Arsenals. I mean, Chelsea are throwing money at it, as we've seen. But, I do feel that he belongs in the Premier League. Listen, all Spurs fans will say that he belongs at the football club. But I think the way the situation is there at this moment in time, I think if I had to put the two together, we've seen last season, Manchester United went on a decent run, had a decent finish to the season. I think Manchester United are slowly building something there, and I feel that would be the obvious choice for me. And I'd be saying to Harry Kane, stay in the Premier League. That's where we know, that's where everybody loves to see Harry Kane.
Lee, you said that Harry Kane's one of the world's best strikers, and you talked about his numbers. I want to talk about another of the world's best strikers and numbers, Kylian Mbappe. Serious numbers. Can you see him going to Saudi?
I wouldn't mind him at Villa, if I'm being quite honest. I think we might have half a chance of competing. No, listen. Again, it's another situation, is it, that I think Saudi are throwing. There's no hiding the fact they're throwing so much money at players at this moment in time, and we've seen so many players leaving the Premier League. But I mean, this is a big one, isn't it? And it's a big call for Kylian Mbappe. The guy's absolutely phenomenal player. I think the situation he's got at PSG, it's just such a mess, isn't it? And I think he wants it resolved quickly. Listen, I don't think he's got to go for money by any stretch, but I think having that sort of money thrown at you for a season or a little bit longer than that, I think it's hard to really turn down. But it's where he wants to be, and it's where he wants to progress his football. He's one of the world's best, so he could go anywhere in the world, and that's why, I think everybody wants to see him playing in a Premier League, playing in, a PSG side. So I think that needs to be resolved quite quickly. But it wouldn't surprise me if he does end up out in Saudi.
I'll tell you what, if he does, I'd go for one of those Chelsea contracts, those 8-year-long contracts at $600 million a year. Let's talk Manchester City. Kyle Walker. It seems like Pep is determined to keep him. Would City be really dumb to let him go?
Yeah, I mean, Kyle, I was fortunate to play with Kyle when he was a young kid at Sheffield United. Him and Kyle Norton were the up-and-coming youngsters that were certainly going to go and progress, and I could see that. And Kyle Walker's just got better and better. He's got stronger. I think Kyle Norton was probably the one that was tipped to go and do special things, and Walker proved everyone wrong. He's an athlete. He's still an absolute phenomenal player. And as I said, I felt he's progressed so well as he's got older. I mean, listen, no matter what age he's at, he still proves he can come up against the best. We touched about, Mbappe when England played France and he had to do a job on him. He's capable of marking the world's best because of his pace, his strength. He's got everything about him. And I think they'd be foolish to let him go because he can play anywhere pretty much along that back line, can't he? And he proves he can get forward. He's got everything that I think Pep loves as a defender, as an attacking defender, and the style that Pep plays. I think it'd be hard to replace Walker. I really do, because as I said, he's a phenomenal player.
Lee, Gundogan's gone. Mahrez on the verge of leaving. Walker could leave. There are the question marks over the futures of a few other players. City fans should be really worried, shouldn't they?
I think so, yeah. Well, Gundogan proved how outstanding he was, and not just last season. I think you can go back previous seasons to prove what he's done at the football club. And as you said, Mahrez came in and took him a while to find his feet, but still the numbers are there, aren't they? And that's where it's a worrying fact that you want to keep all your best players, but it's hard to keep everyone happy. We know the squad that Manchester City have, the strength in depth they have, the younger players that are trying to sort of push their way through the door into Pep's plans. Yes, I mean, I wouldn't be wanting to get rid of the likes of Gundogan. I wouldn't have liked to get rid of the likes of Mahrez, because you know what they can produce, and then you're adding Walker to that equation. So, listen, I personally don't think that Walker will go. I think he'll end up staying. I think they'll have to offer him something that makes him stay at the football club. But I agree with you. I do feel when you think of them players that have gone, obviously Gundogan's gone, you've got the likes of Walker could still go, and then you've got the likes of Mahrez that could walk out the door. It's hard to fill them spots that them players have produced and the numbers that they've produced over seasons.
Yeah, indeed. Lee, I know you only came on because we had to say that you could talk about Aston Villa. So let's talk Aston Villa. Can they challenge top 4 next season?
Oh, no, big question. And you know what? I think last season was, a phenomenal season. Since Unai came through the door, he got a tune out of everyone. He got everyone believing, fans, everyone that was at the football club. And we've seen a different dimension to the way that Villa played. The formation that they played, he was getting a tune out of everyone. And he's done a remarkable job. I think, I look back at last season and listen, the likes of Chelsea weren't in the mix-up. Liverpool were nowhere near what they should have been. And that's where I feel that this is going to change. This season's going to be such a tough season to go and maintain, to go and progress. I think if Villa finished 8th or 7th again, I think West Ham did it a few seasons on the bounce where they ended up spending money and then they fell short. I just hope Villa don't go and do that, because I think expectation levels at the football club, I've been there as a player, and we can get carried away. They've got a lot of games to fill this season, obviously being in Europa Conference. So that's where I think the strength in depth's coming. We're getting some real big names coming into the football club. But I think a top 4 finish, I'd be happy with a 7th finish and we progress again. And that's where I feel the football club's certainly going to go.
Lee, brilliant to speak to you. Lee and his marvellous soft furnishings. Great to speak to you, Lee. Thank you, mate.
Thank you.
Lee Hendry there, brilliant. Right, still to come, more from Manchester United and Chelsea. We're going to talk Fulham as well, aren't we, Dharmesh? And a former Premier League striker, wait for it, has urged Harry Kane to get out of Spurs. See you in a moment. Into the last part of today's transfer show. Now, we've got more from Manchester United and Chelsea to come. But we spoke about him earlier, and the future of Harry Kane was a major talking point at an event that launched a 4-year partnership between the EFL and Jameson's earlier. Now, Dion Dublin and Adebayo Akinfenwa took part in a quiz at the event and had differing views on whether Kane is more likely to chase trophies with Bayern Munich or the Premier League goal-scoring record.
Down to what Harry wants to achieve. Individual goals, stay where you are, keep doing what you're doing. If you want to win team goals, I know what it's like when you win things with a team. It's better than winning when as an individual. So I think personally, and I'll get shot down by the Spurs fans, for Harry Kane, I want to see him win team trophies so he can feel it. He's too good just to win individual trophies.
If he wants to go and test himself, then he wants to go test himself. I actually thought he would go after the Premier League record. That's what I thought would be driving him. So when people want to talk about trophies and that, in that self, that's a trophy. But listen, if he goes, I think Harry Kane can walk into any team in the world. So Bayern Munich will be getting a striker.
Right, let's talk a couple of quick names before we go. Henderson.
Yeah, not Jordan, Dean Henderson. They're edging closer to an agreement with Manchester United over a loan with an obligation to buy. Discussions are centring around the obligation fee and the structure of how that fee will be paid. Cautious optimism now that a deal can be struck between the clubs. Henderson, of course, was on loan at Forest last season, got a serious thigh injury in January, cut short his season, but impressed enough for Forest to want him back. And obviously, Andre Onana has arrived at United. He's the new number one.
Now, you did remind me, Lukaku, what's going on?
He's no nearer to sorting out his future just now. He continues to train at the club's Cobham training ground while the majority of the squad is out in the United States. Juventus are ready to do a deal for €40 million, but they would have to sell one of Dusan Vlahovic, Moise Kean or Federico Chiesa to fund that deal. Now, all three of those players are with Juventus at the US tour. So that's why Lukaku is in limbo at the minute. Al Hilal have got a deal on the table, but he wants to stay in European football just now.
Well, we will keep an eye on that. Transfer shows coming up throughout the day tomorrow. Sky Sports News is next. We'll see you.